Hello and welcome to today's webinar on Life After LSVT LOUD and LSVT BIG. So this is meant to be a step-by-step guide to help you to maintain your treatment gains. So really talking a lot about what happens after treatment. We'll start out today talking a little bit about some things that we do while we're still in treatment. We'll segue into talking about recommendations for discharge. We'll then come back around to talking about some of the things people do on their own when they come back to therapy, all of that. And then we'll wrap up with leaving a little bit of time at the end for questions for anyone who may have any questions. Go ahead and do next slide. So I'll first introduce myself. My name is Jenny Tecito. I am a physical therapist by training and a LSVT BIG faculty member. I have been a physical therapist for about 21 years in clinical practice before transitioning last December into working full-time as the Director of Communications for LSVT Global. And I am joined by my colleague, Beth Peterson. Beth is a speech language pathologist who is an LSVT LOUD faculty member, also works for LSVT Global, coordinating all of our webinars and a variety of other things for us as well, all while raising a young family, keeping herself on her toes and busy. So we will be presenting from both sides of things today with a speech therapist and a physical therapist to be able to answer questions on both sides. Next slide. If you want to read a little bit more about each one of us in detail, we do have our biographies here, so you can see a little bit more about our background, where we came from, where our training is, but I won't bore you with reading all the details right now. Feel free to dig through that more on your own if you would like. Next slide. A few disclosures before we get started. All of the LSVT faculty have both a financial and a non-financial relationship with LSVT Global. Our non-financial relationship includes a preference for LSVT LOUD and LSVT BIG as treatment techniques. Both Beth and I are employees of LSVT Global and receive lecture honorarium. Next slide. So let's go through a few of the logistics. Your microphones are all muted as you join us today by default. We will, as I said, have time to ask some questions. So if you notice on your control panel, there is a tab that is labeled questions. If you have a question you think of while Beth or I are speaking today, you can go ahead and enter into that question tab your questions at any time. You don't have to wait till the end to enter it there, so feel free to enter it at any time. We also will wait to answer those questions until we get through all of our content, and we will at that time have the opportunity also to click on the raise your hand icon if you want to be unmuted to ask a question in person. We will review the details on that when we get to the question and answer time, so you don't have to remember all those details now. I also want to direct your attention to a tab on your control panel called Handouts. In that tab, you will find the handout with all the slides for the lecture today. You can go ahead and download or print that handout of the slides and keep that for your records. When we are done today, we will launch a short survey, and we'd really appreciate it if you'd take just a few minutes to answer those questions on the survey. We truly do take suggestions, advice, recommendations for future webinars right from those survey questions and helps us guide our plans and what we're going to present on in upcoming webinars. So we really appreciate that. We'll talk a little bit about continuing education units as well here on, I believe, the next screen. So we do not register these public webinars for CEUs for speech, physical, or occupational therapy professionals. So if you are a therapy professional in the speech world, it is not ASHA certified. In the PT or OT world, we do not have not applied for that in advance either. But if you are in one of those realms and you would like to try to register with your state, you may have the option to do that. In order to do that, you need to be in attendance for the full hour of the webinar today. You will need a copy of your handout, likely with the slide content. And you would also want to reach out to us and request a certificate of completion, which will include your name, date, duration of the webinar. You will likely need all three of those things if you are going to try to have your state cover it. So keep that in mind if you are someone who is in the therapy professional world. Next slide. So some objectives. Once we're done today, we're going to hope that you will be able to understand and discuss the elements of LSVT treatment and the homework sessions, that you will be able to explain the importance of ongoing practice at home and identify potential tools to assist in that home practice after discharge. You'll be able to outline the rationale for LOUD for Life and BIG for Life, which are group maintenance exercise classes, which we will touch on today as well, and recognize the need for periodic check-ins, or what we call tune-up sessions, to keep people with Parkinson's living and working at their highest functional ability. Next slide. So we're going to start by just asking a couple of questions that will help Beth and I understand who is joining us today. So are going to launch a poll here in a second. And for that poll, we're looking to find out, are you a person with Parkinson's or a Parkinson-like diagnosis? Are you a family member, friend, or caregiver, or do you fall into that other category? So go ahead and launch the poll here, Beth. So go ahead and select which one you fit in the best. We'll give you a little bit of time to submit that. And then we'll review what our group looks like today once we get enough responses here. Looks like we've got almost about 70% of people that have responded. We'll give it maybe about 10 more seconds or so here for people to get their responses in. Perfect. Okay. So we are falling in someone with Parkinson's or a Parkinson-like diagnosis is about 40% of who's joining us today. Family member, friend, or caregiver is making up about 20%, and then other is falling into that nearly 40% category as well, which might be some of therapists, physicians, other medical professionals, et cetera, that are out there. So thank you for giving us that information. We do have one more poll also, which we're going to ask about, is if you are a person living with Parkinson's. So for those 40% or so that responded that you are someone with Parkinson's or a Parkinson-like diagnosis, have you ever undergone treatment with LSVT LOUD, LSVT BIG, or have you done both? So go ahead and launch this poll for us, Beth, and we'll let those of you who fit into that category go ahead and respond. We'll give it a little bit of time to make sure everyone gets a chance to get their responses in. Good. Looks like it's kind of stabilized, so I think we can close the poll here and look at what we found. So we have about 17% of you that have done LSVT LOUD, about 46% who've done LSVT BIG, and about 38% that have done both. That's great. That's wonderful to see. Thank you for sharing that information. It helps guide us in how we talk about all the things that are coming up next. So we'll have Beth close that out and get us back to our slides here. So for anyone who is a little less familiar with what LSVT therapies are, we're going to just do a quick introduction here to the treatments. So LSVT LOUD and LSVT BIG are both intensive amplitude-based exercise therapy programs for the speech and the limb motor system. So for speech and voice and body movement exercise programs. The focus in these sessions and with these treatments is on that re-education of your sensory motor system. So I know that's a really big word, but that's really how your body interacts, how your sensory system and your motor system interact with each other to produce mobility, voice, and to recognize whether or not that mobility and voice is normal or abnormal when the movement or speech happens. So we have fundamental treatment principles behind that. which it is hypothesis-based, Parkinson-specific. So the treatment was originally started based on Parkinson-specific symptoms, and we now know from research and other things that we've learned that it is also applicable to atypical Parkinson's, other Parkinson-like disorders. We've seen some research in pediatrics and stroke in a lot of different areas. So we've seen this transition over to a lot of different diagnoses at the same time. It is neuroplasticity based. So there's some principles of neuroplasticity that we know are important for learning. Some things like intensity of practice, repetition of practice, making sure it's salient, which means important to you. So there's a lot of things that come out of that piece that we've based the treatment on. It is also based on over 30 years of research, and the treatment protocol is personalized to each individual and their individual needs. Our overarching goal for people with Parkinson's is that people will learn to use their bigger movements and their louder voice more automatically in everyday living. And then the goal that there is long-term carryover. So we're not looking to just see improvement in the therapy clinic or in your therapy sessions. We're looking to give you the skills that you need to be able to then leave therapy and continue speaking loud and moving big throughout everything you're doing in your day-to-day life, and to have those results be as long-lasting as possible. So we look at this lifelong model of care. What happens originally is patients are referred into therapy. They're taken through an evaluation to determine if they're appropriate for treatment. They would receive LSVT LOUD or LSVT BIG by LSVT certified clinicians. So speech language pathologists will deliver LOUD, speech or occupational therapists will deliver BIG. We will see people for a minimum of 16 visits. So we're treating 4 days a week for 4 weeks. If someone needs more than that, therapists are trained to know if it's clinically relevant, if it's needed to continue beyond that, and they will help make that clinical judgment for people. There is then daily self-practice where everyone is asked to do homework. So you have your LSVT exercises that you're practicing at home. Homework really should only take about 10 to 15 minutes a day per treatment. So if you're going through BIG and through LOUD at the same time, it might be a little longer for you, but each treatment would take you about 10 to 15 minutes a day to practice at home. We then have resources available for group practice. So some people may join a LOUD for Life or a BIG for Life class, whether that's an in-person or a virtual class, to be able to continue to practice their skills with people like them who are living with similar diagnosis and similar symptoms. We then ask people to come back for scheduled tune-ups. So we really ask you to think about your therapists just like you think about your physicians, where you go in for a regular checkup every 6 to 12 months to see your neurologist or see your dentist. We want you coming back in to see us for a checkup as well. Your therapist can really assess your voice, they can assess your movement, and they can determine if any more intervention is needed at that point in time. So that is what we call a tune-up. And Beth is going to talk to you more in detail both about those group classes and tune-ups later in our presentation today. So we like to talk about 6 keys to maintaining treatment gains. First thing is success starts on day 1. So when you meet with your therapist on that very first day to start treatment, your therapist has been trained to know how to help you be successful. So we educate on the homework requirements, the treatment requirements, how often you're going to be here, how long you're going to be here for, what that exercise looks like outside of therapy, so that we're setting you up for success and trying to avoid having any surprises. Then during treatment, it is so important to adhere to the protocol to make sure that not only are you participating in the treatment sessions themselves, but that you're doing the homework, the carryover assignments, everything else outside of therapy. I always like to tell my patients that you're dedicating a lot of your own personal time, your insurance dollars, potentially money out of your own pocket, that in order to get the best gains, you really need to follow what we're saying. So adhering to that protocol during that 1 month of treatment. Then your therapist is working throughout treatment also to prepare you for discharge so that you know by the time you get to your end of treatment what discharge looks like, what you'll be expected to do, how to reconnect with your therapist if you need them. We want you to be continuing to practice after discharge. So we will outline for you what that looks like, that you're continuing with your homework daily, every day, forever, that you think about it as medicine. We love to see people get as involved as possible in their community, joining exercise classes, whether that is a Big for Life or a Loud for Life exercise class, or maybe it's just that you like to walk, you like to swim, you like to box, you like to sing, you like, anything that it might be, that you're getting involved in that community engagement to continue to practice your treatment gains. And then, like I said before, we'll have you back for some tune-up sessions intermittently, provide therapy when it's recommended, and try to keep everyone that we treat at the very top of their game for as long as we possibly can with this diagnosis of Parkinson's. Next slide. Here's an outline of what an LSVT LOUD treatment session looks like. So there are some main exercises that are practiced. There's the duration holds of the long ahs. So you're probably familiar with those, with the ah, and holding that for as long as possible. So you're practicing lots of repetitions of those ahs. Then you're working on some highs and lows where you're taking your voice from one to the other. So a high and a low might look like this. Ah, or the opposite of going ah, and changing your voice, because think of all of that intonation, all of that changes that your voice has in it. We don't normally talk in a very monotone voice. We have a lot of fluctuation up and down in our voice, so that helps to really address that ability to go up and down with your voice. Lots of repetitions there. And then there are some functional phrases that you will practice as well. Now, these are things that you say frequently. It might be good morning, or honey, when is dinner, or something like that. And you're going to practice those statements using your loud voice over and over again. You're then going to practice a more complex task with a hierarchy exercise, which would include reading and progressively reading longer things, maybe more complicated things, bridging conversation, having candid conversations, being able to listen, understand, comprehend, and then respond, etc. You will also have that homework then, where you're practicing at home every day on your own, all 30 days of the month. And you will be asked to do some carryover exercises every day, where we're asking you to use your loud voice in a real life situation outside the treatment room. So your therapist might say, what are you doing after you leave here today? And you might say, well, I am going to go home and we have a card game at the senior center tonight. They might ask you then, okay, when you're at that card game at the senior center tonight, I want you to really think about sitting with your big, tall posture and using your loud voice while you're talking during that card game. So we'll fit it into your life and what you're doing. Next slide. This is what an LSVT BIG treatment session looks like then, where there are actually 7 maximal daily exercises that you practice, because we move in a lot of different planes of movement, a lot of different directions. We want to practice posture, stretching, flexibility, rotation through your trunk, being able to rock and reach and change positions easily. So there's 7 exercises. There's 5 functional component tasks, which these are going to be functional tasks that you choose that are important to you. For example, sit to stand. We're going to practice getting out of a chair with big effort to stand up and sit down 5 times. We're going to do that same thing with 4 other activities that we're going to choose. So these are simple one-step tasks. We're then going to work on walking big with big effort. We're going to work on more complex hierarchy exercises. Like I mentioned, reading for speech. For physical or occupational therapy, that more complex hierarchy exercise might be the process of getting dressed, getting out of bed to go to the bathroom, something like that. You again have homework all 30 days of the month, and you have those same carryover assignments that you're going to do every day as well. So you're going to use your big movements in real life situations outside of the treatment room. So in this case, it might be when you go to your bridge game tonight, I want you to walk in with your nice big steps all the way to the chair, big steps to turn around and then sit. So more of a gross motor functional task example there. Or it could be a fine motor task of when you're playing cards, I want you holding on to your cards with a big, strong grip and putting those cards down on this table with some strong effort every time you set them down. Next slide. So what does homework look like then? For LSVT Loud, you're basically going to do those same things you were doing in your treatment session. You're just going to do them in an abbreviated version. So you can see there's fewer repetitions of the exercises listed here. You're going to practice those voice exercises. You're going to practice your functional phrases. You're also going to practice your hierarchical speech exercises, which is your reading. And you're going to do that carryover assignment that we just talked about. So this should take you maybe 15, 20 minutes of your time at home on your own. For big, you are then going to do all 7 of those exercises, but again, notice there's fewer repetitions. You're going to practice your functional component tasks, your big walking, and you're going to do that carryover assignment like we just talked about. So again, this should only take you about 15 to 20 minutes on your own outside of therapy every day. How much time is spent? So as I mentioned, we have 10 to 15 here, could be up to 20, just kind of depends on how long or how quickly you get through your exercises. And you're exercising every day. You can see here that there's 2 different statements. One talks about 1 other time a day, and one statement talks about twice a day. The difference is that it depends on if it's a treatment day where you've seen your therapist or a non-treatment day where you've not seen your therapist. So if you think about it like this in your head, you are going to exercise twice a day, every day, all 30 days of the month. So when you go to therapy, it counts as one of them. So check, you can check off 1 time. So on a therapy day, you're going to do it 1 other time that day. On non-therapy days, when you're not seeing your therapist, you're going to do your exercises twice a day. So maybe morning, afternoon, midday, evening, whatever works best for you. You're going to do them twice a day on your own. But in the end, it means you're doing them all 30 days of the month. Your clinician will guide you through the treatment. So we'll monitor your progress. We're working towards calibration, which means that you're recalibrating your voice, your movement to be more normal again. So our goal is not to have you walking around shouting or moving around with way too big of movements that people are looking at you funny. That may feel like that at first, but to others it doesn't sound that way or look that way. So over time, we're looking for that calibration to happen where you know and accept that this is the amount of effort that I need to use to move normal, to speak normal, and to practice that over and over again. We will talk about your plan for discharge. We'll review opportunities for continued exercise, and we can help provide resources to connect you with support groups, other classes, other peers, so that you can really gather your tribe, have people that can help you practice with you and keep you motivated to continue. By the time we land in your final therapy session, we hope that calibration has occurred, you've established a good home exercise program, and then your therapist will reassess tests and measures that were completed at evaluation. So you can kind of think back to that first meeting with your therapist, the different things they tested you on. Could have been volume of voice, how long you could hold your ahs. It could be your balance testing, how many times you can stand up out of a chair. So they're going to retest any of those tests and measures that were done at eval. We will then compare and contrast all that testing and be able to celebrate those successes and gains with you. This final treatment day is one of my favorite days because it's so fun to sit down and show people where you were and where you are now and how far you've come. Because I think when you're in it, and you're doing it every day, it doesn't feel like things change as fast or as much as they have. So to really be able to celebrate those successes and gains is amazing. We'll review all your goals, how you did with meeting those goals. We'll reinforce importance of your daily home exercise program and help try to set you up for success. So our next section then is about therapy's over. What can you do now to maintain those treatment gains? And so I'm going to switch over to my colleague Beth, who's going to take it from here.
All right, thank you, Jenny, for that great overview of the treatment and homework sessions and then what it takes to be successful. So as we mentioned, I'm going to walk you through how you can maintain your gains that you made during the month of treatment. And the key to that is really to continue that daily practice of your LSVT exercises. So once you complete treatment, we want you continuing to practice every single day for the rest of your life. So we have some items here and resources that may be helpful to you as you continue on that journey. The first is just really knowing your home exercise program. So on that last day of therapy or sometime during the course of that last week of therapy, your therapist will go over this program for you. They might give you a handout that you can put on your refrigerator or somewhere in your home so that you know every day you have a little reminder of what the exercises are and what you should be doing. Some therapists even give out like a homework log where you can check off every day with a dry erase marker, and then you're held even more accountable because you're checking every day. So something to really help you establish that home exercise program and give you that reminder every single day. We also have some tools available through LSVT Global that I'll show you on the next few slides. We have some homework helper videos where we have instructors actually walk you through the exercises that you've done in therapy. We have for LSVT LOUD a program, it's a software program called the LSVT Coach that you can download on a Windows-based PC, and that can also walk you through the exercises and gives you feedback based on goals that your therapist has set for you. And so we'll take a look at that too. And then I'll talk a little bit about Loud for Life and Big for Life classes, which are the group maintenance classes that are developed for people specifically who have finished LSVT Loud or LSVT Big programs, and it's a chance for them to continue practicing in a group setting. And then there's also going to be periodic check-ins with your therapist. So, you know, around the 6-month mark, sometimes earlier, just depending on what your needs are. So that again, we're part of this journey with you forever. I loved how Jenny said it, just like you continue to see your doctor every 6 months or so, your dentist every 6 months or so, you also should think of that for your therapist, because we want to continue to partner with you to really help you maintain those great gains that you make during therapy. So first I'll show you the homework helper videos. And so we have them for both LSVT Loud and LSVT Big. For the LSVT Big one, you'll see that there's 2 volumes, and the first volume is freestanding or standing holding onto something, and volume 2 is an adapted version in the seated or supine positions. And so you can see this is Jenny here, so she is the one leading you through those exercises. And then for LSVT Loud, we have one version that takes you through all the exercises that you would do in a typical homework session. So these can be nice tools for those that want to follow along with a guide at home. So we do have some videos that I'll play for you so you can get some clips, kind of a sense of what these videos look like. So let me just pull up these videos. The first one you'll see is going to be the high and low exercise and the LSVT Loud homework helper video. So if you're up for it, I would encourage you to try to follow along with Cynthia, is the one guiding you here, just as you see her introduce the exercises on the screen. So let's pull that video up.
When you're ready, we'll begin with our first exercise. Watch me, then do what I do. All right, on to our next vocal exercise. As you remember from speech treatment, we're going to take that ah voice and now go low in pitch, like me. Ah.
All right, so it takes you through those highs and lows after it had taken you through some ahs. It will have some functional phrases on the screen, or you could read your own. We'll also have some reading practice, or again, you can read your own, but it's nice to have that as a guide for you. So next I'll show you a clip from an LSVT BIG homework helper. Let me just pull that up. And this is going to be the step forward and reach, so one of those exercises.
I'm going to have you watch Jenny and do what she does, and she'll model the exercise first, and then we'll practice. Be sure and start with your big posture, and you're going to step forward, open up big, step back big.
All right, so the LSVT BIG video is going to take you through the different exercises that you would do in your homework session, and you'll have Jenny as your guide there. And so these can be really nice tools for those who want to have an instructor there with them, or just to keep them motivated to do the practice. They're available either in the DVD format, and you can purchase that on either our website or on Amazon, or they're also available for download or streaming through Vimeo. And if you go to the LSVT Global website and click on, it says either store or shop, and then it's under the exercise videos, and that's where you can see the different options there. All right, another tool that some clients find helpful is the LSVT Coach Home Edition. And this is a software program that was developed with funding by the National Institutes of Health and the Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Hey, Beth, we are not seeing your slides.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jenny.
Yep.
So this is just a slide showing you the LSVT Coach Home Edition and what this looks like. And so this is a program that you can download on a Windows-based PC, and it will give you audio and visual feedback based on goals that your LSVT LOUD certified clinician has set for you. And so you can see here, this gentleman is practicing. There's a little microphone clipped to the top of the laptop. So when he produces his voice, and then it's taking in that voice, and it's going to show him his loudness. For the pitch exercises, the high and low exercises, it will actually show him his frequency, so that it's a value in hertz. And then it will also show him his duration for the ahs. So it's a nice tool to give you some feedback as you go, and then also just something that you can kind of walk you through the exercises. So we also have a video clip of that one. I'll show you that on the next slide. Let me just go over some key features first. So you do have to be under the care of an LSVT LOUD certified clinician who would recommend the device to make sure that it would be appropriate and useful for you. And what it does is, again, it provides you that audio and visual feedback. The clinician would set goals based on how loud you should be, the duration you should have, what your pitch should be, based on what you've done in therapy. So then the device will give you specific feedback. It will say, oh, that's great, do it again like that, or it will say, oh, let's see if you can go louder, or let's see if you can go longer next time. So it's very specific to your needs, because it's based on the same goals that your therapist has been working on with you in treatment. It automatically obtains calibrated sound pressure level, which is the acoustic correlate for loudness, and then frequency, so on your highs and lows, and then duration data. And you can also email the results files. It just populates to an Excel spreadsheet that can be attached to an email that you can send to your clinician for review also. So it's a nice tool to connect you back to your therapist that way. So this slide, I will show you a video example of what this LSVT Coach program looks like.
Welcome to a demonstration of the LSVT Companion Home or Client version. This program can be used by individuals with Parkinson's disease or other neural conditions who are receiving LSVT treatment. The program can be used by clients for their homework practice, or it can be used actually to deliver an entire independent treatment session, either within the clinician's clinic or at home by the client. This is the welcome screen for the program, and the client can choose to display data or not. They'll click Start Exercises and then follow the prompts through the program.
Okay, let's get ready. Let's do those loud ahs. I liked that one. Dig deeper, get louder.
As you can see, the program responds to the client's voice in terms of loudness as well as duration and frequency. And the clinician would have set target goals for each individual client, and if those goals are not met, feedback is given to motivate performance.
All right, so that's another tool that can be useful for some clients as well. So if you are interested in that, you can talk to your LSVT LOUD certified clinician about it. And then you can go to our website at lsvtglobal.com, and then you can it can be purchased from our website as well. We would just double check that you were under the care of an LSVT LOUD certified clinician so that they're able to program the goals for you. All right, so those are some tools that can be used. We also want to talk about just reinforcing exercise practice, and we'll also talk about some follow-up. So we've talked about how a daily practice of the LSVT exercises, it should be one time a day forever. We want you really showing off that loud voice, those big movements daily, and really have a focus on it during that homework time. We'll talk a little bit about Tuneups shortly, and then also Loud for Life and Big for Life classes. We also encourage, as Jenny mentioned, other fitness that you may enjoy. So whether it's dancing or singing, boxing, book club, Toastmasters, whatever it is that you like to do in your community to keep up your good voice, your good big movements. So certainly we encourage those other fitness classes and activities to continue. Now, one thing we do say about that, though, is that while regular intensive exercise is important, it doesn't replace your daily dose of LSVT Big or LSVT Loud. So both are needed. So we want you to do things that you are enjoying for your exercise, but also making sure that you're still really focused on those core exercises and practice in LSVT Big and LSVT Loud. And this slide shows you some of the rationale for that. Not all exercises are going to be focused on amplitude, so that big movement, that louder voice. And so we really need that amplitude-focused exercise to kind of combat that hypokinesia and bradykinesia, so that slowness of movement, that smallness of movement that applies to both the body and the voice. We also want to make sure that it's function focused. So most community-based programs won't include practice of personalized everyday skills and communication. So the program that you've gone to is really tailored to focus on your function, is really personalized to you. So it's important to really continue that focus function practice with your LSVT Big and LSVT Loud exercises. And then also, typically these community-based exercise classes won't be sensory focused. So they're not going to focus on the sensory awareness challenges in people with Parkinson's that Jenny was talking about, where through the course of treatment, we're helping you recalibrate to know what it feels like to have those within normal limits loudness, within normal limits bigness, voice and movement in your everyday living. And so the other programs won't necessarily focus on that. So it's important to still have that focus on your LSVT Loud and LSVT Big exercises as well, but still continuing to enjoy those other exercise programs and groups and activities that you like to do. And now I'll talk briefly about some of our favorite groups that Jenny and I are both a part of, which are the Loud for Life and Big for Life groups. And these are group exercise maintenance classes, and they're designed specifically for people who have completed the full LSVT Loud or LSVT Big protocol, or both. We both teach a virtual group, and we have members who are in both our virtual Loud for Life group and our virtual Loud for Big group. And so they have a big Friday is the day that we typically do that. And so you can certainly do both as well. Typically these groups will meet 1 to 2 times per week for 1 hour. It's cash-based, so it's not through insurance, and they're led by LSVT Loud or LSVT Big certified clinicians who have already completed, so they're already certified to deliver the treatment, and they've also taken extra training to become leaders in Loud for Life or Big for Life classes. And there can be a variety of groups and ability levels in these classes. And these can be marketed to the community at large, not just your own organization. And they can also be done virtually or in person. As I mentioned, Jenny and I lead classes online, and we have people from all over the world that are attending those classes. So that's been really fun to be a part of that. So let's take a look at what happens in these classes. So with Loud for Life, the goal of the class is that the louder voice translates into conversation in everyday life. So we do some exercises, we do some of the daily exercises together as a group, and then we break up into small groups and do some different exercises in our small groups that are really based on kind of functional exercises or kind of speaking tasks that you would be doing. So this slide will show you some of the activities that we've done in groups. So we might do book reviews together, open mic, be a tour guide, dinner party guest. We just did one last week on sharing a recipe. So some really fun activities that we work together in small groups. And we really organize them to be engaging and stimulating and helping the members talk as much as possible in these smaller groups. So Big for Life is structured very similarly. So it starts with those LSVT Big exercises and then breaks down into function-related practice. So translating those bigger movements into your specific functional movements. And so this shows you some examples of what might happen in an LSVT Big class. So eating a meal, car transfers, steps to going to the movie, gardening, sports events. So this kind of second half of every class is about 20 to 30 minutes focused on those functional practice examples. And there might be themes. We typically have a theme per week, whether it's an upcoming holiday or event. So functional tasks that are kind of reported by the group. We always like to check in with our group members and see if there's things that they want to be practicing on. So they're really, really nice classes that can be done post-treatment that are really fun to lead. I always talk about how it's one of the highlights of my whole week doing these classes because they really are a lot of fun to see the progress that people continue to make after treatment, and then just to really see that kind of camaraderie and community engagement together. So virtual Loud for Life, as I mentioned, so there's virtual Loud for Life and virtual Big for Life. It's the same structure as an in-person class, and now that we're all getting more and more comfortable with Zoom, we figured out how we can break up into small groups in Zoom and come back together as a large group. So it's really the same structure, just all virtually there. So if you're interested in a Loud for Life or Big for Life class, there's some steps here on your slide for how you would find that. So you can go to our website, lsvtglobal.com, click on Find a Clinician, type in your designated provider or select that. Type in your location, choose your distance, and then under the provider, it will show you if they're a Loud for Life provider in your area. And then you can contact that clinician to see when they hold their groups and just more information about that. If you're interested in joining one of our virtual groups, you can also contact our info@lsvtglobal.com. That's our main email address, and see about getting in some of those virtual classes as well. Now, something I wanted to touch on also was what data say about maintenance with the program. So especially with LSVT LOUD, which is what we originally started with, over 30 years ago now, we have some maintenance data showing that the treatment effects will last out to 2 years. And it's not to say that it will end at 2 years. That's just when the funding concluded. So that's how long we could study participants. So, and that was without any ongoing groups. So what's really neat is that with these programs, if you do the program the right way, as Jenny mentioned, you're following the protocol, you're doing 4 days a week for 4 weeks, 1-hour sessions, and you're continuing to do homework on your own, you can have some really nice outcomes that continue to last in the long term. So that's a really nice benefit of these treatments, is that you don't have to do these group programs. It's not something that's required in order to maintain those gains, and the research supports that. Now, with that being said, we do know that there can be challenges once that structured month of treatment is done, in terms of how to maintain those treatment effects over time. So it might be that you're no longer in that good routine, the disease has progressed, maybe there's other medical complications, Or maybe you've become complacent. Oh, I'm doing so well, I don't need to practice anymore. You've lost the motivation. The sensory impairment is impacting your ability to do your home exercise program regularly, or just that feeling of apathy. So with that, we do like to mention that yes, you know, these effects can last over time without additional group practice. But for those who do want that additional motivation, that additional engagement, then these groups are really a great kind of resource that's available to you. So either way, we just want you to know that there's options. You don't have to do them, but they're available to those who may find it helpful. Now, once you finish treatment, as Jenny mentioned, your clinician will also be checking in with you. So we say that that 6-month mark is a good benchmark, even though we have data showing that out to 2 years that we can maintain those gains. We like to check in at 6 months just to see how people are doing. And so it might be that you don't need any therapy at that time at all, and I'll say, okay, continue what you're doing. I'll check in with you again at another, in another 6 months. For some people, it might actually be earlier if the disease is more advanced, or it might be an atypical Parkinson's or post-DBS. In those cases, we might check in earlier just to see how you're doing. So it will vary. We normally say we check in about 3 to 6 months, and then we'll check in again after that. So if we do deem that you should come in for treatment, it's typically not a full 16 sessions again. So we would just have you come in for some tune-up sessions. So again, some people may need no treatment and would say, okay, keep up the good work. I will check in with you again in 6 months. Or there might be some tune-up sessions. And so with this, it might be some enhanced motivation is needed. So just getting you back in kind of the groove of practicing every single day, reminders of how to do exercises with the best effort. So sometimes we'll have where our patients will be doing great, and then they'll go on a vacation, or some life event happens and they kind of fall off the wagon of practicing and they kind of forget how they were doing it. So sometimes it can just get them back into what it feels like, the effort it should feel like, the big movements, the louder voice. And so we can get you back into that same feeling again. And then we'll address new goals or issues that have come up. And so these tune-ups, I'd say on average, it's usually about 4 to 6 sessions, but it can vary depending on your own situation, what your previous treatment was, how long ago it's been. But we do have these tune-up sessions to, again, continue on your path to success. And they'll look just the same as they did during your month-long of treatment. So the structure for the day will be the same, your daily exercises, and your hierarchy practice. With LSVT BIG, there's also that big walking. And then your clinician will determine kind of at what level that you should be practicing based on where you are compared to where you were at discharge. So those tune-ups can be on your radar as something to help you keep maintaining those gains. So just to wrap up before some question time, this is our general summary of what we've covered today. That number one, it's important to discuss those expectations for treatment and home practice with your clinician so that you know what to expect and you know what you're committing to as you get into the month of treatment and beyond. And then establishing a great homework routine that you can maintain over time. So we talk to the clinicians a lot during our trainings about, especially early on in treatment, making sure that our patients have great routines. They have a good place to practice. They have a good time to practice, that they're really, again, kind of in that groove. For LSVT LOUD, we like to say you brush your teeth, you do your Oz. It becomes that much a part of your daily routine. And then considering the use of some of those LSVT homework resources that I showed you earlier. Number 3, consider engaging in community exercise. So definitely keep up with your own homework practice, but if there's community exercise programs out there, we'll help you connect with them. We encourage you to continue those. And then also consider participation in the specific LOUD for Life or BIG for Life classes. And then also discuss check-ins and tune-up sessions at discharge with your therapist so that you know what to expect in terms of when they're following up with you, how are they following up with you, and some of that depends on your insurance or the way that their facility works. In some places, we actually have it where they'll just set you up right at 6 months. They'll say, okay, I'm going to write this note for your doctor. You're going to come see me again at 6 months, no matter what. Other times, it's just they call you and check in. So just it's good to know, since that does vary by insurance and clinician and facility, just to know what that's going to look like so you know what to expect. So we do have another webinar coming up. This next one will be in July. This one's more geared to allied health professionals. So if you want to pass this along to any allied health professionals that you know, we would encourage them to attend. This is about expanding your clinical reach and how to apply LSVT treatments beyond Parkinson's disease. And so this will be held on July 20th, and this you can register in the events tab on our website, and you can scroll down to that July event. And the other webinars are also listed on our website too. We have our full schedule listed, so you can see other webinars that are coming throughout the year. If you weren't aware, we also have all these webinars available on demand. So if you go to blog.lsvtglobal.com and click on webinars, you'll be able to see all the on-demand options also. I should mention there will be an email that comes to you right after this webinar. I think it comes about 1 hour after, and it will have those links directly on there for you also, but just so that you know for your reference what's available for you. So we do have about 10 minutes or so for some questions. So Jenny mentioned a few ways that you can ask your questions. The first would be to type in your question in the question box on your webinar control panel, and then we'll see those questions. We'll ask them out loud and then answer them that way. Another way would be to raise your hand, and so you can click on the hand icon on your webinar control panel. That shows me you have a question, and then I'll call out your first and last name to let you know that I'm going to unmute your microphone, and then you can ask your question out loud to the group. All right, so we had a few come in. Okay, so let me just browse through these really quick. Okay, and Jenny, if you want to take this one, is there a fee for participation in virtual classes?
Yeah, you know, it depends on who is offering the virtual classes and if they're offering something free of charge or for a charge. Generally, I would say most virtual platforms that have classes are charging for them. If you're referring to what we have right now through LSVT, is we are in the process of launching a subscription site that will be called LSVT for Life. We are hoping to launch in July. We're working on that process actively right now, and that will have a membership fee for it to belong to that, to both have access to live classes and on-demand content as well. We are running some beta classes right now for free to just kind of learn how to do all of that before we launch into a subscription service. So I think Beth mentioned that, but it will eventually turn into a subscription site with a fee.
All right, thank you, Jenny. So the next one is, how can I purchase the software? So I think the LSVT Coach. So if you go to our website, so lsvtglobal.com, and then under the, I can't remember, I think it says store. If you click store, it's got a little shopping cart icon, and then it will actually list, it's previously been referred to as the LSVT Companion. And Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if it's updated yet on our website. It will either say Companion or Coach.
I know they're in the process of updating all of that right now. So yes, I'm not sure where it's at.
Okay, so we'll either say Companion or Coach, and then it will give you a lot more information about it so that you can see what it looks like. You can read more about the descriptions, the pricing, that type of model that you're asking about. And then if you're interested in it, I would also check in with your LSVT LOUD certified clinician to get connected with them to see if they think it'd be something that would be helpful for you as well. But so if you go to lsvtglobal.com, go to that shop, it says shop, so it's shop, and there's a shopping cart icon, and then it will say LSVT Companion, and then you can select that, and then it says LSVT Client Edition, and that's the one that will give you more information specifically about the one designed for client practice. All right, and Jenny, if you want to take this next one, what is your assessment of rock steady boxing?
Yeah, I've not been trained in rock steady boxing, so I can only comment on it from what I know. But as a clinician who treats patients, who have been doing, I have a lot of my patients, many of them will do both. So they're doing LSVT BIG as a therapy treatment, and then they're doing their big exercises, you know, on a regular basis. They're also supplementing that with joining a community-based class like a rock steady boxing class or something like that. So I definitely encourage people to do both and join classes like that. If you think about, our basis is around increasing amplitude of movement. And if you think about boxing, amplitude is really important. So I think they're a nice complement to each other. One is a little bit more of a therapy approach. One is a little bit more of a community-based exercise option. Some therapists also do use some rock steady boxing in their treatment itself as a therapist. But I know there's a lot of gyms out there that have rock steady boxing classes too, which are wonderful. So definitely complement each other well. And I would say, you know, get involved with a therapist that can help guide you in the right direction on what would be best for you.
All right, thanks, Jenny. And another one for you. So how does the program LSVT BIG compare to the POWER or PWR program?
Another good question. And again, I will say I am not trained in POWER, so I can't really talk too much to what they teach their therapists or how they do it. Knowing though that the founder of POWER is someone who had her beginnings with LSVT BIG and started with us, created, you know, helping translate this treatment from speech to movement. And then she decided to open her own gym in Arizona and do her own thing, which is kind of where POWER came from. So again, a common basis on amplitude approach. I know they're different in their structure. Where I can speak to what LSVT BIG does with, we have definitely the structure of the 4 times a week for 4 weeks. Because we have a protocol and a structure, it's easy to be researched. So we do have a lot of evidence, published research articles, things about our treatment that help support that. I'm not really familiar on the POWER side of things, where things stand with that. But you know, they definitely are both more of an amplitude focused treatment.
All right, great. Thank you, Jenny. And this is more of just kind of a housekeeping question, but how do I get my certificate for participation? So for those on here, speech language pathologist, physical or occupational therapist, if you're interested in getting a certificate to self-report your continuing education credit, you can get that by emailing us after the webinar. So just email webinars@lsvtglobal.com and let us know that you'd like a certificate of attendance. There's also going to be, as I mentioned, an email that gets automatically sent to you after the webinar, and it will have that information also. So you can forward that on to us, and we'll see that you'd like a certificate. And then we'll email you a certificate typically within no longer than 2 weeks, typically within 1 to 2 weeks for you to get that certificate. All right. I don't think we have anything else. So, oh, there's one hand raised. Let me just check that real quick. Okay, so Thomas McIntyre, I'm going to unmute your microphone for you to ask a question. All right, Thomas McIntyre, your microphone is unmuted if you'd like to ask your question. And sorry, Thomas, I couldn't hear it. It sounded like there was some kind of crackling in the signal. So if you want to type your question in the question box, we can get to it that way. All right, and next I see Sandra Wolf. So I'm going to unmute your microphone. Okay, go ahead, Sandra.
I don't have a question.
Oh, you don't? Okay, sorry, your hand was raised. I'm going to mute you again.
Oh, sorry. No,
no problem.
okay.
All right, and then I see Warner and Laura Jane. So I'm going to unmute your microphone. Okay, so Warner and Laura Jane, your microphone is unmuted. All right, and sorry, I don't hear that either. I don't know if there's background noise or a bad signal, but so Warner and Laura Jane, if you have a question, you can type it in the question box and I'll get to it that way. And then there's one more question, but I just want to make sure for those that need to go, I know we're at the top of the hour. So if you need to sign off, you can sign off and you'll get your certificate if you're interested in the certificate. And the survey will pop up right on your screen once you exit the webinar. That survey link will also be embedded in the email that you receive in case you don't have time right now. But we do encourage you to take that survey. It just takes about 5 minutes and it does really help us with our planning. All right, so then we have Joseph McGaldy. I'm going to unmute your microphone for your question.
Yes,
All right.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
One of the things I would suggest is maybe developing some phone apps also for this program. That'd be very helpful too.
Okay, that's
about
like
that.
For like continued practice. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, for coaching, for reminders. There's a lot of apps out there that remind you it's time to do your homework. It's time to do your, some sort of video app or something that has links to it that you can go to different videos. That would be very helpful.
Yeah,
And
I
the other
love that
thing is,
idea.
the other thing is when you search your YouTube for videos on this, you don't really get that much. Are there any resources that you recommend out there that are good that you can, when you do the research on YouTube, you get some good information?
Well, if you're looking for videos on our website, so lsvtglobal.com, there we do have a whole section of videos specific to LSVT BIG and LSVT LOUD exercises. We do have a channel on YouTube also, which I would assume, let me just double check.
That would be a good link to look at also. Very good, thank you.
Yeah, so it should be just LSVT Global, and you can search that channel, and then all our videos will be there on YouTube. Now, also, as I mentioned, all the webinars that we do, so those are available on our website at blog, so B-L-O-G, so blog at lsvtglobal.com. I'm sorry, blog.lsvtglobal.com. And then if you click on webinars, then you'll see our whole on-demand webinar library for all of these. They're typically hour-long presentations of everything that we presented for, a number of years now. So that's another resource if you're looking for videos.
Okay, are those on the emails that were sent out?
Yes, it is. It will be on the email that comes out, so you'll have all those links there.
Thank you so much. This was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Joseph. All right, I think that got all those questions answered. So thank you everybody for participating, and thank you to Jenny for your great expertise here today. Again, we hope to see you at a future webinar, whether it's July or beyond. So thanks again for your time today, and we will talk to you later. All right, take care.
Bye, thanks everyone.